There is this girl who later once said, after 2 years, like I said, going to just end my life because I didn't find meaning, and also there is some critical situation she's going through.
In the process of breaking bad news to somebody, it might even break us. Has there been a situation where you were counseling, but you also needed that comfort?
A lot of the transformation that Jesus brought to me as a person has influenced in everything. Most of these girls, I met them on Instagram.
See, social media is good
It's
sometimes.
It is good.
You said that a family is as healthy as the women in the house. There is also this saying that says a woman is a woman's worst enemy. What is your opinion?
Women hate each other. This is such a misconception. I don't think there is anything more powerful than a woman encouraging other women.
Yeah, very true.
Family prayers have the power of bonding, because we usually think bonding is going out together, dinners together, but the kind of bonding you get being in one place, praying for each other, is massive.
If you had to be stranded on a deserted island with one person from your family, only one person, who would you choose?
My brother.
I thought your husband. I would also choose my sister. I'm talking about the ones who are coming from the services that you do. Do you think they are looking at you as Swati Aburi, or they're looking at you as wife of John Ellie?
Sometimes don't need great revelations to change our lives. All we need is a human who's listening to you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Can't Count Them. This is your host, Navina, and I'm super excited to see you here. Today, I have with me a guest who is married to a famous gospel singer, but that is not what defines her. She works as a lead database engineer at Thomson Reuters. However, her influence goes far beyond that. She's a talented singer, songwriter, a certified emotional intelligence coach, a global life fulfillment advocate, and above all, the founder of Hello Blessed, a community that has touched several lives of the less fortunate and lives of the unreached. Without much further delay, let's welcome today's guest, Swati Aburi. Hi, Ka, how are you? It's a
Thank
pleasure
so
having you
much.
here.
I just felt so good about myself when you're describing everything in
No,
one.
you deserve it. You totally deserve it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so how are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
So, shall we get started?
Yes.
Can I know a little bit about your childhood, where you were born, your parents, your siblings, and the kind of upbringing that you had?
Yeah, so I come from a very small, simple family from Vizag, and my father comes from a Brahmin background. And my mom and my dad, uh, they had this amazing love marriage. And it's after their marriage, there was this once my mom arranged a cottage meeting at home. And that's when this pastor was sharing gospel, my father came to know the Lord. And most of I have a elder brother, Sandeep, and my father worked abroad most of his life, so it's mostly me, my brother, and my mother. And very regular, disciplined childhood we had, because dad was always away. Mom was like extremely cautious, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We just balanced both the sides of the families, both my dad's side and my mom's side, um, for festivals and all of that. Like we are like a mix
Okay.
of both the cultures.
Yeah. How were you as a kid? Like a person who was timid or naughty, or
So this is what my mom says. Okay, that now when I have my daughter running around the home, she is like the naughtiest,
okay.
in a good way. But my mom says you are exact opposite to what she is. నువ్వు ఎక్కడ కూర్చోబెడితే అక్కడే కూర్చునేదానివి అని she used to say. Like you would not trouble anybody. You would just be there. And my dad would say, I don't even know how you grew up this much, honey. So I think I was a very calm, just to myself, sort of a girl in my
Okay.
childhood.
Nice. You told me that your parents had a love marriage, right? What about you guys?
So yeah, ours is an absolute arranged marriage. So I was in Bangalore when my brother came to me with this proposal about John. So my brother and John had a mutual friend who goes to Hope You See. That's how they felt that it might be a good match for these two, and then we got to know each other.
Yeah. What's your opinion? Do you think love marriage is correct or arranged marriage is correct? Because even until now, in the Christian community, sometimes love marriage is looked at, in a very narrower sense. There is still tunnel vision about it. And also some of them are against it, so.
Like as though it's something not so great, right?
Yes.
No, I think you can't draw that line at all. To get to know a person and then you marry him for as much as you know them is equally important as you just honor what your parents or God selects for you. In my case, it is that.
Okay.
But as much as I love this journey, I think that is also equally important for people in this generation, especially.
Yeah.
So I think I don't think we have to look down upon either of them.
Yeah.
And we can't generalize what is right and what is wrong also in these two. What is better of these two? I think it's neutral.
Yeah. So you're also working in the corporate sector, right? I mean, what inspired you to start Hello Blessed or, to become a certified emotional intelligence coach and there's multiple feathers that you have in your hat. So what inspired you to start these things or pursue these things?
So this is one of the questions I very often get asked about. What made you start Hello Blessed? Okay. As much as it looks like I did this for others, it's actually for myself that I started this because I lacked that fellowship back then.
Okay.
Going to this very big churches, and John is always traveling. He ministers to multiple churches and places. There was a vacuum back in the home where we didn't have that fellowship with a group of people who are doing life together. You know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Just going on a Sunday, coming back home is not where your life happens.
Yeah.
It's throughout the week. Somebody who knows what's happening with you in your home. And we lacked that a lot. And though John, I think he was busy doing the touring and all that he's called to do, I felt the lack like anything in the initial days of my marriage.
Okay.
And that's when we were living with John's parents in Secunderabad. And I decided, instead of running to places to try and find such fellowship, and women needs it a lot, Navina, more than men, women needs it a lot. And I decided, why don't I start a sisters community as simple as on WhatsApp, just gather, pray, read the word, and see how it goes, which is where I actually started this with just, I think, 7 or 8 people. 3 or 4 of them are my friends, and maybe a few cousins of mine. And eventually, I understood that every girl needs it.
Yeah.
Most of them needed it. So they went and got their friends. They went and got their friends there. And it just expanded exponentially like that.
Yeah.
And today we have many people joining from different cities and also countries. And we still do meet online, and yearly we meet once, which we call cohorts.
Yeah.
We did one in Vizag and this year in Hyderabad. And I think to answer your question, it's pretty much what I needed that made me start. And then in this journey, when I was talking to these girls, every single girl here, I made sure that I know all of them because that's something I wanted from my leaders, that they should know me personally, not just to recognize me as one among a group. So I wanted to give time to each of them. And it's during my maternity off, the 6 months break you take from work, that most of this has come up, where I had some time and I did talk to a lot of them. And when I understood, we sometimes don't need great revelations to change our lives. All we need is a human who's listening to you. Yeah. And that's the very foundation of Hello Blessed. And now these girls, they don't come to me running because they think Akka will pray like a prophet and things will change. No, they come to me because they know Akka will listen to them. And that assurance itself changed a lot of lives. Okay. It's as simple as that. Yeah. So when coming to emotional intelligence, while I was talking to them, there is a season where I was also burning out. Because I'm human at the end of the day. Talking to close to 100 people is no joke. And I'm doing left, right, and center. And I felt, in order to process it properly, I heard this from one of my friends who said, See, when you have a problem, you immediately try, like a health issue. You might try taking a painkiller or something that you know of. When it's getting serious, you want somebody who's certified to do it, right? And I'm anyway doing it for over like 3.5 years. But I thought I need a proper, um, what do I say, structure to what I'm doing to be able to help them more effectively. So I thought I'll get this certification done, and I finished it this year.
While counseling, there are people who literally open up to you,
Yeah.
right? The person who is seeking counseling, that person seeks is trust,
Yeah.
and the listening part, right?
Yes.
But has there been any situation where their trauma or their issues have burdened you so much? Because sometimes, right, in the process of encouraging others, we forget that even we need encouraging,
Yes. Yes.
in the process of breaking bad news to somebody, it might even break us,
Yeah,
right?
that's a good one.
Yeah. So, has there been a situation where you were counseling, but you also needed that comfort?
Absolutely, Navina. I think throughout the journey, every time I felt that I'm overly burning, I would take a break and then just reflect, get back to that place of overflowing again. And only then I would, I think, do it. There were a lot of times I usually wake up to a lot of voice notes. Hello,
Okay.
blessed. All the girls are so used to these voice notes. Just drop me their problem, and they'll be like, okay, I left it to some place where it'll be resolved, kind of assurance they have. And I wake up to a lot of these voice notes and I don't immediately jump to them. But I think like I said, I intentionally try to come to that point of overflowing because I wake up dry sometimes.
Yeah.
And I needed that push too. So maybe I'll finish my quiet time. Sometimes I run to my mentors and I talk to them. And then I think I will sit down and listen to them and answer.
Yeah. The next question, right? It might be a little bit offensive.
No problem. Just
Yeah.
go ahead.
So, like I said, you're the wife of John Erie. John Erie is her husband. Yeah. So, I'm pretty sure you have a lot of friends. Some of them are the product of your endeavors, and then there are also others, right? But mostly, I'm talking about the ones who are coming from Hello Blessed or from the services that you do. Do you think they are looking at you as Swati Aburi, or do you think they're looking at you as wife of John Erie?
I think this is something I've fought all my life to be able to have my own identity. As much as I honor marriage, I honor John, his calling for what he does. I definitely want my own identity for people to know me for who I am. And that's the beauty of Hello Blessed. Why I love this so much is uh, socially, there are common friends of ours who recognize me just as John's wife. And I respect that too. That's how it is. And but when it comes to Hello Blessed and my own family and a few very dear friends of mine, they know me for who I am. And that's a lot of power for a woman.
Yeah.
And I think even John encourages that. He kind of never publicly didn't say, I mean, as much as we encourage each other in our callings, one of the questions we often get asked is also this. Usually a wife and husband, they do one thing together. You see anywhere around. But you two are doing two different things, equally competitive. And how do you just strike that balance? Or do you think that many people have also said that this is wrong?
Yeah.
They said you just have to do one thing. In fact, they also suggested that, you have to drop everything that you're doing and you come support your husband. As much as I would love to do it, John is an individual contributor, like how we call in IT,
Yeah,
the
correct.
ICs, right?
Yeah.
He's an individual contributor. He does it all by himself. Not that he doesn't need help and not that I don't want to support. When that time comes, I think we will be the first ones to help each other out. But I don't think he had ever said, because you're spending too much time in Hello Blessed, I don't think I'm getting help here. He never said that. And even I never thought that, this is something that I'm doing just to prove to people or prove to my husband. No, there are people out there, real lives, Navina, we are talking about. They need help. And sitting here, if we are debating about what a wife should do, what a husband should do, and all of that, who would attend them? And it's always the heart of the father that to just address the lost,
Yeah.
to get them back home, to just be there for them. Like I said, I didn't do great things for these women. I just was there. That's it. That's all they needed, to not make them feel alone.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone should have a problem with it, as much as we don't have this competitive spirit, between us.
Yeah.
And we don't feel threatened because of what we do also.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
love what we do.
So now, you're handling multiple roles. How do you balance? Because you have a desk job, and that has, sorry to call it a desk job.
It
No,
is. Yes.
you play multiple roles, and you're working in the corporate sector, and then you're doing the ministry. You also have your own music. You write songs. They're beautiful, and also the way it was shot, right? It's so nice. How do you balance all of this? And also, you're a mom of a toddler.
Yes.
How do you
Yeah.
balance all of these?
I think I've had enough help, or to put it in a better word, I think it's just that, technically speaking, I didn't have deadlines to do any of this. I think there is a lot of pressure when you plan to do something, and you're chasing it.
Mhm.
There is a little pressure here. That's how the world works. But for me, except work, everything that I do is something that I just desired in my heart and I did it. Desired in my heart and I did it. Like, for example, emotional intelligence is never on my planning list or to do list. There was a need for me to do it and I did it. And like I said, songs and music, it's out of the overflowing of what's happening in my life that came out. And also, most of what I do is online because John travels a lot.
Yeah.
And he came to full time last year, but before that, even he was working. So while he's traveling, I kind of prioritize his calling by doing this. Though I have a lot of invitations to go in person and I can do anything going there, I kind of prioritize doing only virtual things right now until Ollie grows up, because home and Ollie needs me. That way, I can allow him to go out and do what he has to do. And I multitask a lot. Like, for example, in between my work, so when I talk about my work, I'm into development. If you know, like we
Yeah.
code.
Yeah.
So in between that, I need breaks, because I lose my mind sometimes, and I'll be like sitting on one bug for so long. I'll be like, why is this not coming? And that's when I switch a little because everything is on the desk again.
Yeah.
So I'll switch a little, try to make my minutes of meetings here, and then come back. I think it's at that convenience. If I am into some other job, I think this would have been a little difficult. But being into technology myself, that has also leveraged what I do, in a lot of ways. Yeah. So I have to tell you this. So because all of this has developed online, after 2 years, we had our first cohort meeting. So after 2 years of meeting online continuously, having all our meetings and all the voice notes and God showing up in multiple ways. So we all have developed a kind of affection amongst one another. And the first cohort in Vizag happened after 2 years of starting Hello Blessed.
Okay.
And when we met, we know everybody by name and by watching them on the screen in the meetings, but we haven't seen each other in person. So the first time we met, these girls, they've come from Hyderabad and Bangalore and Rajahmundry, Vijayawada and the nearby places. And we were like, are you Eden? I thought you would be a little taller when I looked at you on the screen. Are you Megan? And you know what? It's like we know them so much, but we are seeing them for the first time. It was a very special feeling we had. So it's mostly whenever and wherever we are. So that made it very possible. Instead of you have to come here to meet me, instead of you have to do it right now, only when I am free, I didn't do that. I just kept my schedule open and did it whenever, wherever. I think that made it very possible.
Okay. Now that we're talking about balancing multiple roles, there's also this continuous discussion regarding prioritization. So what comes first, whether it is family, ministry, job, or ministry, family, job, or what is the correct way of, assigning them the ranks?
Definitely family.
Okay.
And then I prioritized Ollie a lot. and I am very glad I did. Most of the times, like I said, if John is not around, I was in Vizag at my mother's place most of the times, and I think through it all, I prioritizing Ollie has been such a satisfaction for me. And I would even know little growths in her, and I'm so glad that happened. And I have this thing. I mean, if there's any mom watching, I want to suggest them
Yeah.
also doing the same. So ever since I had Ollie, I conceived her. Even before I gave birth, I created an email ID for her, and then I used to write letters
Oh,
to her at every stage, what happened to me, and then how was
nice.
she growing up, and what did I realize. Those only mom things, right, to your daughter or your son, to that matter. I think those will be their precious gifts when they grow up, and that's what I used to do. And like I said, that's how. Uh, if I feel I'm doing too much of ministry, too much of my work, and I didn't prioritize her, I know what I have to do coming back to Ollie. Like I would do things like this, something that will be like an investment into the future.
Yeah.
No, not the financial thing I'm talking about. These little things to make her still feel special when she grows up. And when it comes to family, like I said, I always prioritize sending John first and me next. And so I did most of it online. And I am a very big freak at work. When I sit on something, I have to finish it. So I kind of balance it uh, by, I think, I give my work hours its priority too. Meetings and work hours, time with my colleagues and manager. They kind of, I think of all the reviews I had so far, they've been great. They've been good. I don't like keeping things pending. It can be in Hello Blessed also the same few principles, which are, I mean, it need not be something related to faith, right? It need not be, you need not draw a line for a few things to say that, oh, you have to do this only in church. But some of them that I drew out of this and that I use in workspaces, I don't let people wait when they have something to talk to me or meet me. There are a few mentees that I mentor at work, and I started going out for campus recruitments this year and hiring a few people for my team. Uh, One of the things I inculcated is to not let anyone wait. I attend them immediately, or just tell them that I'm busy or I'll come back. But people don't like to be in that waiting period, not knowing whether you'll come back and answer them or not, right? So I think a lot of what I do here, or I should rather say, a lot of the transformation that Jesus brought to me as a person has influenced in everything. And I think part of that is also prioritizing. And you know what, Navina, you can't say this is my order and you have to stick to it. It's not like that. A day changes everything. That particular situation changes everything. Sometimes you may have to keep this aside and attend to some other thing that's bleeding. It can be work, it can be family, or anything. I kind of just go with how God leads me for that day. But in a nutshell, I think this should be the order, for me at least. Like it's family and then my work and ministry until God calls me full time.
Oh.
I'm accountable to what I do and they're paying me for it. So.
You mentioned a word called transformation.
Mhm.
So, can you share a pivotal moment that brought a transformation in the life of anybody through your work, right? Through your ministry?
I think when it comes to Hello Bless, there are many. Would be nice if they can tell. But there are many, out of which one I remember the first testimony of Hello Blessed, because it's always special. There is this girl who later once said, after 2 years, like I said, we did cohort after 2 years of starting Hello Blessed. And she was testifying in that cohort after 2 years. And she said, there was a day in my life where I was going to just end my life because I didn't find meaning. And also there is some critical situation she's going through. And ending a life is no joke. We
Yeah.
might be sitting casually and talking about it, but For her, it's just everything has come to halt. And that day, she said she was in that auto going out somewhere to just end it all. And I said, like, I mean, it's like I always emphasize, it's not great revelations that will, bring huge differences in people's life. It is the simple things, but just the very fact that they are important, that somebody out there in heaven cares them. And she says that's the exact time where I texted her saying, I need you in the meeting this evening to take minutes for the prayer that we are about to
Wow.
have. And she just came, all the thing happened, and then cutting it all short, she just came back thinking, if this is my purpose for this one day, I'll just not do it today. And that evening in the meeting, God changed her life. And that always will remain special because it's the first one. And it's as small as I didn't call her and say, hey, you know what, I want to pray for you. I didn't do that, But why I emphasize on this so much is uh, people want to know that they are cared and that they are respected.
Yeah.
And that's one. And on the work side, I see this especially in Indian community, okay, that they just define women to do only a certain things in a certain way. It's like they box them so much. For someone to come out of it, it takes a lot of battle, a lot of support that they look for. And there are many helpless places where women try and they stay back. One such place is in the corporate side, where they would just get in as a junior developers or testing or whatever teams they get into. And then they eventually grow to be a senior performer. And then they take a break because all the women usually get married at that age and they have kids, a maternity off. And again, when they come back, they feel so insignificant, or the men around, at least one will make them feel very insignificant, that they'll just settle for whatever is offered to them. Like, you give me some work, I just came back, I had a baby, I think I'll just try to prove myself all the more once again, kind of a feeling they come back with.
Trying to fulfill the expectations.
Expectation, right? And it'll take a lot on them to also try to come back in the competition
Yeah.
with other men who's been there all the 6 months, who has performed really well. So in the corporate side, many women stop growing after that. It's called the mid-level. Many women settle in being in the mid-level, and they don't grow up the ladder. So one of the greatest blessings my manager has done to me is, soon after I came back from my maternity off, for some reason on earth, she sent me for a leadership program training. She nominated it herself. I didn't even know that that exists in my organization. And that really went well. And after I came back, I thought, every woman in the mid-level needs this. For whatever favor I had, I attended it for a whole year. But how about we make a simpler version of it available to all the women out here? And this year, my VP visited our office, and unexpectedly, we had some time with him. And that's when, during our dinner, I just proposed it to him, saying, you know what, we might have to do something like this for women, and this will bless a lot of them. And he came from Canada. I told him culture in India is not like anywhere else outside. If you can do this, I think it'll help all the women across organization. And we have started curating a program for them. He said yes, and we might start it in Jan next year. So all the women will be trained in the leadership. So when I say leadership, it covers all the aspect of their executive presence and their contributions, their leadership, their growth, their self-confidence and everything. Because before that and after that, I learned many things in the journey during that. So to be able to curate a program itself and to facilitate it for all the women across the organization, because this is going to continue in even after I leave the organization for any reason, this will continue there. So I think this is one of the greatest things I feel very grateful for.
Has there been a situation where you doubted your worth? Any person that made you feel intimidated?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not, Navina? I mean, as much as there are people who love to progress you forward, who loves your growth, there are a lot of people who question why you're doing what you're doing. Um, and I did take a lot of such correction coming from the right people, because you always should have a heart of correcting things, because nobody is perfect, and I might stumble a lot of times. And thank God I have a sibling and a few friends of mine who tells me, you know what, you're not this, you're doing this for some other stuff, people who can even come down to the point of our motives, because I do a lot of things. Sometimes I have my brother question me, what's the motive behind what you're doing? And then I would step back and be like, you know what, let me correct that and come back and do this. And some of my friends who knows me in and out, they would definitely ask me, Swati, I don't think this is you. And then I would just come back. So I took correction, but not criticism, as much as I believed why I'm doing what
You
I'm
mean
doing.
the negative criticism?
The negative criticism, definitely.
Another thing that I wanted to talk about is Hello Blessed.
Mhm.
Hello Blessed has a lot of initiatives. Can you tell us a little bit about all those initiatives and how did it affect, or what was the impact?
I think one of the initiatives I should first talk about is EMC. It's called Eden's Music School.
Okay.
And like I said, we didn't start it because we planned to do it, but there was a need. So we often see all the men getting trained on guitars and keyboard and everything, right? But very few families encourage women to go out and learn. And I mean, it's easy to talk about things like this in cities like Hyderabad and Bangalore, because girls can also go out and learn. But my main focus is on the towns and villages where women are very talented. These girls are extremely skilled. They sing with not even one note going here and there. I might flunk, but they don't. So, how about training them with music? I mean, they can be moms too at any age. They are sitting at the luxury of being in their own homes and learning music. And I have this amazing, wonderful, worship leader. Her name is Eden Deborah. She joins us from Mysore,
Okay.
and she's a pastor's kid and an amazing worship leader. She's been with me from this journey began. I don't know how God her to this calling of Hello Blessed. She's been there throughout, and
Did you know her before?
no, she approached me. Most of these girls, I met them on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah,
See, social media is good
It's good.
sometimes.
it is good.
Yeah.
So yeah, most of them I met online. Like I think 90% of them. So which is when she said, I'm also looking for some fellowship like this. Akka, it's been so long, and I'm hearing this from a pastor's kid. And
Wow.
yeah,
Having an entire church,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
yes. And then she joined. She's been there in all the services, and there is this one time I felt that maybe we can start a music school where women can just be at their homes and learn music. That way, we can also financially fund this pastor's kid who is also in the dire need of finances. If I can help her once, but uh, to be able to generate that every month is where my heart fell on. How can I mean? What's her gift? Her gift is music. So we thought, how about we doing it? And I told her, come with your own syllabus, pray about it, and it need not be the properly technical levels of music that the schools outside teach. It's not what we teach, but it is what she knows, and she's extremely skilled at it. So she came up with her own syllabus, and we also covered a few other aspects. Like, on that note, I really want to mention that my whole idea of worship and sound changed when I read this book by Dano, who is the founder of Sounds of the Nation. I told this to Alan a lot of times. Like, this book impacted and changed me a lot, Anani. So it's called God Vibrations, and it has all the physics about sound. It has all the it is both supernatural and natural at the same time. He just comes to that line, and it's an amazing book. So ever since, my whole idea of sound, whether there are two or three people, which is why when God said, wherever two or three gather in my name, and I will be there. And there is power when two people gather in one place and release that sound. So our family prayers, where I'm so used to this in my childhood. I, my brother, and my mom. That's it. With that kanjara
Mm.
would
Yeah.
call, right? So that's it. And that has been such a backbone for us as we grew up. I and my brother, we talk about it a lot of times, that those family prayers have shaped us a lot. And so imagine a mother who's now technically trained on maybe a guitar, just few chords, that's it. She need not go on stages and do great shows, right? But she's performing for her kids and for God. The whole dynamic of their family prayers have changed when they were trained. So they're trained in vocals, they're trained in, some of the moms went and got their kids to join and enroll for this. So EMC is one such initiative, and we finished 4 batches, and fifth batch is currently happening.
And the
And then
Sisters Closet?
and the Sisters Closet is another one. There were a few other girls who were in this financial need. So I was discussing with one of my friends who's Priya, who's been an integral part of all that I do. She comes from a Hindu background, and she came to know the Lord. It's a beautiful story. So she's been an integral part of what I do, even till date. And I was discussing it with her, and we came. She was working for Deloitte then, and I was with Reuters. And we came up with this idea of, how about we invest uh, into their lives where they can monthly generate some income for themselves. So we just initiated this thing called Sisters Closet, and uh, invested in getting some stock and asking them, whatever you sell, take it back home every
Wow.
month. So they also feel motivated enough to, as much they know that as much as we work, we get. So we just did the initial investment, but they took it forward from there. That's
So it's
another
like
small
providing livelihood, right?
kind of, but that kind of makes me feel it's too huge to say that I provided livelihood to somebody. But
Maybe
it's just a
guidance, right?
piece
A
of it. Yes,
direction,
yes,
roadmap.
yes. Maybe to fill in pockets, 30% of their pockets, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah,
How did journaling came into all of this? Journaling. Yeah.
I have been a person who writes all my life. Like I have books after books. I
Yeah,
think
you also wrote such beautiful songs.
yeah. So I've been a person who always writes, and writing has a power of releasing
Yeah.
what you have inside of you. And I definitely wanted to encourage all these women to write down what they are feeling when they are really bottlenecked with too much of feeling and emotion going and running in their minds. And it's also good when you look back, the journey. Sometimes because we don't write it down, it's just in the air, you forget it.
Yeah.
You only remember a few things, but when you write it down, you go back to those moments. So as part of doing that, I wanted to curate this book to just inspire them and motivate them to write on a daily basis, which is when I teamed up with few. These girls are amazingly talented, Navina. Some in music, some in creative work like this. And I just guided them as to how I want this to look like, and they did it all. And we got these reviews done by a few people that I know of, and just to make sure that we are not telling anything outside of what we believe, right? Because this is going to homes, this is going to different people on the name of gifts and for personal need. So we just made sure we did this review after review on all the books that they've done. So I should give all this credit to the girls in Hello Blessed who did this. There's Dr. Monica who worked on it. There is Manisha. All this work, some are into medical field, some are into, they come from different denominations, by the way. And the only common factor in all of us is different language speaking, different denominations, and different line of work, different educational backgrounds. They are doctors, they are creative people, they are people into IT, law, and different education pursuing people. But I think it all narrows down to one thing, that everybody are hungry for God, and they take refuge in Him. That's the only thing that kept all of us on the common ground here.
Okay.
And I often tell this: Hello Bless is not always about Swati Akka. It's just about what it is and what God wants it to be. Tomorrow it might not be me, and just because I have a daughter, she won't continue doing this. There might be anybody who got trust
Yes.
with this vision and calling. So it's all about what God is doing here. So everyone owns it, Navina. That's the beauty of Hello Blessed. Everybody owns it. They think it's mine, it's ours. Though I don't reciprocate in terms of finances for what they do, they just do it out of their free will. Sometimes they say, you know what, Akka, I felt like doing this and I'm doing it for this time, which otherwise that would have costed me money and my time and my efforts to do it. They would just, out of the gratitude that they have towards what God is doing, they would do. So I think everybody owns this. Every sister owns this.
So I have 3 to 4 questions that are a product of this. Okay, 3 to 4 questions that I want to dive in from this particular topic. The first one is the family prayer that you spoke about, right? The family devotions. So could you tell me your opinion regarding it?
I think now I'm loving it, but back then when my mom used to beat us around to come to prayers, I wouldn't. I mean, there were times we wanted a break as kids,
Yeah.
So the fact is, kids don't usually like it. But if either of the parents, like today, it's John. Every day he makes sure he gets his guitar, even just before sleeping. He makes sure we'll just sit down as a family to just sing a few songs and pray. And so back then it was my mom. Like I said, my dad was working most of the time abroad. It was my mom. And it was a simple prayer, songs, and reading the word. That's it. But we would wait for it to be over because moms usually do these long prayers all the time. But more than the spiritual learnings, family prayers have the power of bonding. Because we usually think bonding is just going out together, going for dinners together and eating together, movie time together. But the kind of bonding you get being in one place, praying for each other is massive. I think, which is why I and my brother, my mom, I know everybody have this, intimate relationships and families, but we feel we are even more extremely closer to each other. And that's possible because of the bonding we develop during the family gatherings. So if you find anyone in your family falling apart, today we see a lot of families where everybody have different agendas. Nobody knows what's happening in other person's life, how they're feeling on a particular day, which is why people, instead of running to somebody in the family, they run to people outside for guidance, for help. And family is such an idea of God. And I think to really bond it to the level of how much God wants it, to just sit and pray for each other is so powerful. That's one thing, it's the bonding. And the other thing is that discipline. And I have to say it's because of family prayers. The small 10, 20, 30 minutes of prayers, it just set that discipline inside of us, that consistently you can do something. And it's so beautiful how this discipline and consistency flows into other areas of your life. Because you know that you can sit down and do this every day, regularly, every single day for years together. The kind of discipline that develops inside of you is really massive.
Okay. Yeah. And you also released 3 songs so far?
Yes.
Yeah, 3 songs, right? So I want to know, first one is, what is the creative process like? Do you have any ritual that you follow, like sit down, wake up early in the morning and, the calmness of morning inspires you? Or it just goes, like you went through some situation and that inspired you to write? That's the first question that I have. The second one is skill important or is true passion important? To get into gospel singing or to lead worship, what do you think is most important, whether it is the skill or passion or both? If it is both, to what extent?
Beautiful. I think I'll go with your second question first. It's really interesting. The music that we write it to one audience, that's God. And as much as you're writing it for him, it's being birthed inside of you for God himself. I think skill is equally important because when you know what to do but you don't have the skill to present it, I think you're still not doing a good job there. You might impact just a few but not everyone. But I think uh, the primary thing being the passion and knowing who you're doing that for, and the secondary and still important thing being the skill. Because there are some songs that, for example, Unnavadavu, some of my friends translated it to Kannada language,
Okay.
and they're about to release it next year.
Wow.
And I said, when I heard their story, their uh, music, their sound, basically, I told them this, that you know what, you owned this song. This is my song. I wrote it. I did it first in Telugu, but you justified it more than what I have done, because that's my skill. That's it. It's less, but they are more skilled. They spend time, and they took year and a half to finish it in their own busy schedules, though. But they waited till that uh, standard of their understanding had come. They re-recorded, opened the music files, did all the changes that is needed, and they didn't compromise. I think skill definitely adds to it, which is why it was very evident in the song. You know what? I didn't justify this song in Telugu. You did it in Kannada, and they've done an amazing job. So I think it's both the passion plus the skill, because the Lord deserves the best.
Does your husband help you or guide you in music and about your creative process? Yeah.
Good question. Wonderful one. Actually, to be honest, no, John, you never encouraged me. Encouraged as in he'll be like, do it, Swati, do it. But he never sat down with me and said, hey, can I contribute to what you're doing or something like that. I think
I think he has too much on his plate already.
maybe he has too much on his plate, or he just waits to see what I can do by myself.
Nice.
Or in whichever ways, I think all of this has come absolutely out of me.
Yeah, and about
But
your
yeah.
creative process.
And about the creative process. So Unnavadavu, of all the songs that I did, I think is very, very special to me because of this incident that happened to me last year. I had a medical emergency, and we were living in Aziz Nagar. It's like a little away from the city.
Okay.
And we had this emergency, and it took us close. I mean, I'm cutting it all short.
Okay.
It took us close to 40 minutes to reach the hospital, and it was very unexpected. And I was in this ambulance. My friend Priya is with me. Ollie is sitting there. I almost lost my life. Like I was almost
Oh.
giving up. So there is this internal bleeding, and my blood dropped to 5. And the doctor said, because it dropped to 5, my brain is not receiving anything. My heart is not pumping also, because it's all leaking inside. And I had lots of clots forming. And in this 40 minutes of that time, while we went until we reached the hospital, I don't know how I survived. And that's what, in the same ambulance, I remember my friend and Ollie sitting, and John is in the car behind. And this beam beam sound, right? We usually hear it for others, but that
Yeah.
day I was in the ambulance myself, and we didn't know what's happening. I know that I'm almost losing it. I'm losing my consciousness also, and this. And slowly, when we reached the hospital and all of the operation and everything happened, the doctor said this: because your blood dropped to almost 5, you could have as well got a heart arrest. But it's absolutely God who sustained me that night and every day after that. And by then, just before this incident happened, I got this thought of, there are beautiful testimonies out of Hello Blessed, Navina, from all these young girls. I thought, how about we make a song out of all their testimonies? And this will be something that they own. We usually see great worship leaders write stories and songs, especially out of their own stories.
Yeah.
But there are testimonies in their lives too, and these are common lives out there. And they were very excited when I said, you know what, tell me your testimony and we'll make it a song. Which is when we had only few lines before this incident happened. I was in Vizag. Some of them submitted their testimonies, and out of them we wrote, నువ్వు ఉన్నవాడవయ్యా, నువ్వు ఎంతైనా నమ్మదగిన దేవుడవు. So, and then after that, all this incident happened. The next day, I think early morning, I lost my consciousness. Early morning, next day, early morning, this surgery and all happened, I came back to ICU. I was there for like 4 days in it, without contact with anybody. I couldn't see anyone, and that's when I was only thinking of this song, because we just finished doing singing and practice. I and Eden sat down and we wrote this together online again on the voice notes. Daniel says this beautiful thing, Navina. He says he is a man of excellence for this very reason. I feel in one of his prayers he says, God, even when you know that we and our ancestors have done wrong and you're punishing us, even when we are filled with shame right now, you are still the right. Whatever you do is right. Even when he corrects is right. Even when he punishes is right. That's who he is. So I didn't understand what's happening to me that night. But the next day, all I am just singing is, or rather God is reminding me was, no, Unnavadavaya, that's it. Even when something goes wrong, he's still the God. So I thought, when I come out, I have to do this song. And I think it's the power of so many testimonies into that song made it what it is. And then my friends in Bangalore, they came up saying, after I did a live telling my story behind Unnavadavu, and they said, you know what, if you're okay, we want to do it in Kannada.
Life Springs is another project that
Yeah,
you do.
yeah.
And I wanted to know, how do you identify the area and how do you mobilize the resources? You have extended your ministries to different communities. Give us a little bit information about Life Springs.
Yeah. So when it comes to our outreach programs, usually we focus on doing it for people within the church. We look out for Christian orphanages. We do it for people within again. But then there is this thing in my heart before December, where I wanted to do something for women who are still struggling because of lack of the basic needs of life, and nothing like water, right? And then we identified what are these remote places where women still struggle to get water. And then because I come from Vizag, I think of Araku being the nearest one, because that's the most populated by tribal people. So we contacted a pastor who we knows of, and who has a church nearby in one of the remote places from Araku. And we got to know stories that these women, they go very long distance to get water back home. And imagine, we at the click of a second, we have water like throughout the day. And these women, they go that far to get water and they save it the whole day. And I thought maybe we can do something about such women, where it is not for selfishly doing it people within the churches and you're a Christian, I'll help you, you and I are brothers. So we wanted to do it for everyone in that village.
Nice.
So we thought of setting up this water pump. And
I saw the pictures and truly blessed, right?
Yeah, I was so glad.
During the process of the Life Springs, right? Or during your entire journey with the different initiatives, what are the different challenges that you have faced? Not just in terms of technical aspects, but generally, what are the different challenges that you have faced and how did you overcome them?
Finances are the biggest, Navina, because I never asked anybody to contribute into this. I always wanted to do it out of what I have. Like I said, which is why I never felt the pressure of meeting the deadlines, because I didn't announce saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. Now I have to meet the deadlines and wait for people to invest into this. I didn't do that. As much as I could spare out of my pocket, I extended it a little, and then I extended it a little. Sometimes I would really see that surplusness out of my pockets. And I've always been a good performer at work too. So though I ask or not, I always had this beautiful hikes, I should say, from work. And so I was always able to, like I said, take a little out of my pocket. And there were very few friends, like friends is also not the right way, just two of them who constantly invested into the calling of Hello Blessed. And I think with that said, without the conferences that we do and everything that happens, it's all self-funded. And I think finances, I never felt that I want to do something and finances has stopped me. but it's always how the Lord provided in that time. And also, the biggest challenge for anybody is for you to be able to take it out of your own pocket. It's easy when people give you can do,
Yeah.
but it's hard when you want to do it out of your own pocket, right? But God trained me a lot in that area.
Financial
think.
management is also.
Yeah, the financial management of it doesn't feel like a huge sacrifice for me to take huge amount out of my pocket and do it. I still feel less of what I do. I feel ఇంకా ఉంటే ఇంకా చేయగలుగుతుండే కదా అనిపిస్తుంది. So I think that came from my father, I should say. He's been an amazing giver himself. He used to give a lot to people. We learned it from him, and my brother also, to that matter.
You mentioned that you get good hikes, which means that's a reflection of your performance, right?
Mhm, mhm.
That it's a reflection of your performance, which means you're good at work. And also, you were a topper in your school and college.
Not the school, but in college. Yeah.
Yeah, like the topper, right? The first ranker, right? How? Like, how is it possible? Where do you get time? Like, I mean, that's true. That's like, it's a pattern, right? You didn't fall.
Yeah,
Your graph is always going.
Yeah.
It's not like there's been a downfall, or it's not like a sinusoidal wave. It's just going up. Yeah. So how do you think, how would you guide, people who are in your age or people who are in college to
Mhm.
achieve for excellence? Because Bible also says that whatever you do, work as if you're working for the Lord.
Yes.
But that is also very tough to handle, tough to accomplish. So what guidance would you give?
So one of my greatest pressures I ever felt as a student was to live up to it, because the first year when we got our results, I got to know I was the topper, and then the next year I felt a little pressurized because you are in that place and you
Yeah.
want to keep it up, right? So I think I depended a lot on combined studies. I never studied alone by myself. We did a lot of combined studies, but eventually I think it's God, but at the same time it's your
Hard work.
into it also. People strike it off easily, saying, you don't have to do hard work, God will
Yeah.
do it. But to enjoy every promise of God, there is something sacrificially you need to bring it to the table.
Also to get the true essence of success, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Daniel was who he is for what he had done. To be able to pray every single morning and evening is no joke back in those days, for whatever he was doing back then. So if you are working, be good at it, be accountable to people. And if you are studying, be good at it. And I think this also comes from my family on my dad's side, where all of them, so since my surname is ABB, all of our cousins are roll number ones in the class. We always would go first for Viva, first in roll numbers all the time, and they used to study really well.
Okay.
So I think it came from them also. Looking at other cousins doing it, it just came into me. But my brother is more smarter than I am. So for me, my competition is always him. So in intermediate, when he got 95.7 and I got 95, and I cried bitterly that day. You got 0.7 over me. And so I
I
think
would have been more than happy if I got more
even-
than 90.
eventually I did. But yeah, I learned I think I take all my inspiration when it comes to education from my brother, because in the lowest of his times he did 3 or 4 of his certifications and took entirely different path in his career. And he did this in his 35. So if there's anyone out there watching thinking you can't change your line of careers, it's just a joke. You can do it. There's someone out there who did it, and I know him. So just gather all your guts to do it.
Yeah,
So
it's never
I think
too late.
yes, it's never too late to pick up anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, going by all of this, like your entire cycle so far, your life cycle so far, we'll go according to the chronological order, right? So first is when you got such great marks, you were talking about the pressure also. But There are so many misconceptions with top rankers. Like the
Oh, yeah.
backbenchers, they really don't like. Not
Yeah.
because they are bad at studying. Sometimes backbenchers are really creative. Like
Yeah,
I'm a
they are.
creative
They
person.
are. Come on. Yes, yes, they are. They are.
Yeah. So, what are the misconceptions that people had about you when you were young, and
Mhm.
also now that you are John Erie's wife?
Mhm.
What are the misconceptions that people have about you? When they look at you.
I think there are a few people who doesn't know all sides of me. Some see me only for John's wife. They don't even know that I work.
Okay.
While there is so much happening on this side of the world for me, on the corporate side and my line of education and all of that, some people don't even know that I work. And for some people, they don't know that I am a wife of John Erie, who is a worship leader, because people in my office, they don't recognize him,
Hmm.
right? They just know me for what I do there.
Yeah.
So I think it's a mix. Sometimes it's where I wear the hat of John's wife. Sometimes where I wear the hat of what I do. It depends upon place, people. It changes time and again. But yeah, I think
Misconceptions when you were a child.
when
Did you
it
make more enemies or friends because of your marks?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's easy to say that they just usually about top rankers is what they say, they mugged up everything and they've written. I'm like, can you do that? If that's true, you couldn't do that, right? So either which ways, what really proves your excellence is just not your marks, but where your life is taking you. And today, a lot of my classmates acknowledge me for what I do with Hello Blessed.
Okay.
They say, we always knew you were up to something. And they would also say, we are not surprised by what you're doing today. And so I think people saw me beyond my marks, and my own classmates acknowledged me for that. Some of them, they just go crazy saying, what is this? Are you some Mirabai now for Jesus? Because they don't understand what I do. So,
Oh my goodness, I get that a lot.
yeah, right?
I get that a lot.
From
yeah.
our secular friends.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think there were misconceptions, perhaps, but I think when people saw me doing what I'm doing today, I think God erased all such misconceptions, and they are also proud of what I do now.
Okay. Well, you said that a family is as healthy as the women in the house. There is also this saying that says a woman is a woman's worst enemy. Right?
Yeah.
That is there. It's
Yes,
it's there. So what is your opinion? What do you think is actually true? But people are trying it really hard to encourage fellow women to.
Yeah. So one of the common questions I get asked from other leaders, as I said, is how do you keep all these women in one room together? Because this is such a misconception, Navina, that women hate each other. The minute you remove that competitive spirit out of them, and when I think you bring them to that proper divine sisterhood, I don't think there is anything more powerful than a woman encouraging other women.
Yeah, very true.
And as much as you find men in our lives, like it can be our husband or our brothers or other men supporting you as a friend, I think there is nothing like women who comes into your own shoes, understanding what you're exactly going through. And I had such amazing girlfriends in my life too. And when they say certain things, it hits me different than others. Other men do it in life. So it's only a misconception, and also to the fact that you have to go down to their level. When somebody comes to me, I can show a lot of all of this to make myself feel superior over them. But I don't think people will come to you just because you are superior over them. People will come to you because you step down to their level.
In fact, they won't come to you.
They won't come to you. In fact, why they come to you is because you have that ability to go down to their level and tell them that this happens to us also. And I'm totally against this so-called celebrity culture that people build. I think leaders should stop being unapproachable to common people. They don't like to listen to this, but that's true. You know what? The minute you start being approachable to people and taking away these stigmas of మీరు ఎట్లా కదా అన్న మీరు ఇట్లా కదా అక్క.
Especially in these big churches.
Exactly, right?
It's very hard to approach
very
them.
hard for people to come and even open up themselves to you. See, the world has an approach. What they do, they go to counselors, they go to therapies, they have any other ways. Are God has kept you for this very reason here, and you're stopping people from coming to you because God has given you some glory already. I think you're highly accountable to Him. If there's any ministry, Navina, that is not approachable for a common person,
Yeah.
I think they have to be accountable back to God. A place where, even to say a poor person is ministered, I think that's where the heart of Jesus would be.
Yeah. Has there been a situation where there have been disagreements or even fights between the women that, you mentor? I mean, in the cohort, right? Especially so many
Yes.
women in one room, or in the process of planning for your cohorts. I'm sure it's all the volunteers are women, by the way.
Yes.
So during that discussions, has there been any situation where there were disagreements, or because there are women of different age groups again?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
So
There are, especially when we do in-person meetings, there are. Online, everyone is joining from their own homes, so they don't feel the heat of it. But when you do it in person, yes, there are, because people have different personalities of reacting to different things. When there is a hurry, different girls react to it in a different way, and there have been such little issues here and there. Nothing major as such. To have 100 women in the house throughout 5 years, I can have many big issues, but I rarely see a few. And even this, they come to me saying, you know what, we even forgive each other, Swati. We just want you to know that this happened. So I've never had an issue that I had to sit down with those two and resolve a conflict. Thank God, I never got such situations. But I think they are matured enough. If there is a fight between the elder and a younger one, I think the elder one always looks towards forgiving them. So we do these principles at Hello Blessed, Navina, and in those principles there are these few very practical things we intentionally follow, and one of that is this: if there is a conflict ever at your home or any place with a younger and an older one, if you are the older one, forgive. If you're an elder one, go seek forgiveness. End of the story. Don't carry it any further. So that way, I think they also apply and they come back and say, you know what, Swati, there is this principle that we do and we followed it today here. And yeah, I think there were a few here and there, definitely, but they were also resolved by themselves, and that makes me feel so good.
the entire debate about women, the gender roles, right? Women are not supposed to be on the pulpit. Show me a story from Bible where women preached, comments like this.
Yeah.
And what is your opinion about that?
So when it comes to ministry and women, Navina, I go by this amazing man of God. He was asked, do you think women should preach and do ministry? Then, his answer changed it actually encouraged my calling. And I said, no matter what, I'll just press forward. You know what he said? If I am in a boat in a sea sinking, there's nobody to help me. And if there's a woman who's willing to help, I wouldn't mind taking help from her. So as long as you know you're saving the lost, it doesn't matter if you're woman or man. But if you're performing there, you better worry about it. You know, when uh, some churches get so used to doing things over this, and sometimes it is just you do it without that passion. I say you can step back, wait for some time, get back to the right shoes, come back and do it. But as long as you know you are there doing God's business for Him with one motto of saving the lost, I think it shouldn't matter if it's a man or a woman. And yeah, I think I'll go by that.
Yeah. If you could change one societal norm or the view regarding women or the gender roles in the ministry perspective, what would that be? Or also in the corporate sector?
It is this very thought that people think women being emotional is their weakness.
Yeah.
It's not their weakness. To be able to let their emotions out is one of the strongest gifts a woman has. And because men accumulate them in their hearts, thinking it's masculine to not being
Yeah,
able
but
to
it's
talk
not,
about it,
right?
it's not.
Yeah.
You're only becoming a bitter person. But women are so beautiful in the creation because they have this ability to let everything out. And when they do that, they are so powerful. They feel so powerful. This is one of the things we cover in emotional intelligence also. Uh, I mean, the very reason many people said, when you stand on the pulpits, don't do things out of emotions. You have to let all your emotions aside and then go and preach. This is one of the things I was suggested, by the way. Yeah. And I thought to myself, what? I know to go to Jesus with all that I am. I don't know to keep a few parts of me aside and go to Him. Because when I go, I go with all of me.
Yeah.
And when I do it, a great preacher once said in his sermon that if there's any emotional person in the entire Bible, it's God Himself. And what separates us from being a human from an animal is our feelings and emotions. So emotions are not wrong. And emotional intelligence is not where we are teaching them to be strong all the time, to just gulp all your feelings. No, it's the ability to know how you're feeling at a given point of time. So I think when I do these batches, these sessions on emotional intelligence, after after the session, when they go back and practice, they are a lot liberated than they were before. And I mean, it's more than the knowledge they get. It's just not a course they do. It's the feeling of liberation, because God intentionally gave us emotions, and it's an art to enjoy them. So, yeah, somebody said that to me, just leave your emotions outside and then you have to go inside. I'm like, no, I can't do that.
It doesn't make us human, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make me human.
Yeah. So, what has been the hardest decision you had to make in your career or in the ministry? What was the hardest decision that you took? And could you please tell us about it?
I think in career, it's a different thing, and in ministry, it's a different thing. When it comes to career, I was working for Oracle uh, in 2016 May. And to those of them who works in database development, they should know this, that Oracle is the dream company to get into. And I cracked close to 7 rounds to get in there.
Wow.
And
It would have been easy for you because you were anyway topper.
oh no, don't say that. Toppers feel the pressure in every single test they take. So yeah, and soon after I joined Oracle, it's only been 3 months when I got this alliance my brother got. And initially we thought maybe we can be in Bangalore, and Oracle had this internal policy that unless you finish 6 months in one location, you can't have a internal transfer. And I just finished 3 months, and that's my dream company. But I think I have to give it to my brother, who said, you know what, you're weighing down between marriage and job. I had to quit that and come to Hyderabad, by the way. That's one of the I've been very ambitious about it.
My next question was going to be about that. Good that you're covering it up
yeah,
now.
so when I got through, I was very, very happy, and I'm loving what I'm doing there. But when I got this, I mean, I'm happy about the fact that I'm getting married, but I thought maybe I can get married, go there, and just get an internal transfer, finish that period of time. And then my brother, again, he educated me, saying, you know what, you're spending your initial days of marriage just for work. After this you can get into Oracle any time in life, which I never did again. But yeah, I mean, to trade between a job and a marriage, he said you have to quit and come. And so I think that was a little hard, because to take that journey is what I know what it costed me. So yeah, but at the same time, దేవుడు ఎక్కడ తక్కువ చేయలేదు. He again gave me the best. And that's when I came to Thomson Reuters, and my growth here was very significant. I joined as a pregnant in this office. They could as well said, you'll work for a few months and take maternity off. Why would we even hire you? I told them, after I finished my interview, they selected me. I said, you know what? You might want to know that I'm pregnant. And she said, no, I don't mind. You can just join. And I worked only for 6 months, and then I took maternity off. And in that 6 months, I developed something from scratch, which they always talk about. Even till today, they use it. And they say she developed it in first 6 months of her joining. So
what are your future plans and projects for?
I think I've never been so strategically prepared, like I said. But I'll just continue to be consistent in whatever I've started so far. We are, by the way, doing the book of Hebrews and the book of Daniel this year at Hello Blessed. So I might as well continue doing the same next year and just stay committed to whatever I've promised. Uh, Nothing new as such, but the only thing I have my heart on is to do more in person meets next time, because that was so powerful when we did cohort. Our online meets are also great and amazing, but I think when we met online, it's something else. So I might focus a little on doing more of in person meets, as simple as a home gathering, nothing fancy as such, and to remain consistent in the rest of whatever I've promised.
Yeah. What do you think about the churches? Do you think the traditional churches, or generally churches, are they doing enough to support women?
I think if there's anything in the society that pushes women forward, it is church. You look at churches and women in church, we are a lot encouraged than anybody else outside. So I think it, just like how education started from church in India, missionaries came and they started all the schools and everything.
Annie Besant.
Yes, 100%. I think women are more encouraged in churches than outside, and I thank God for that.
Yeah. So you are a emotional intelligent person now because you're certified
Because I'm
emotional
certified.
intelligence. Yeah. And you're also cognitive intelligent, you know. So but during this entire process between emotional intelligence and cognitive intelligence,
Mhm.
especially the emotional intelligence part, the course that you did or the certification that you did, was it really useful? Because sometimes there are so many people who don't have any of these degrees, but still they make the other person feel better.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So how do you also apply these things that you've learned?
Like I said, a person without certification can also do excellent things, but a person with certification might do it in an organized manner. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, they just know technical terms. And there is something called emotional hijacking. I didn't know this term before, but I got to know while I was doing this course.
Emotional atyachar.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, I think in a room where clothes are scattered everywhere, clothes are still there. But for somebody who's certified and spent some time learning it and doing it, for them, clothes are a little organized. That's it. It's a clean room. They know what they're doing, where they're picking from. But the results they produce can be the same. Yeah. And also, when I was doing this course, the course is all nice, but at the end, it was not complete because they said, so this is what it is. This is how you have to do these things and come back and be a better person. So at the end of the day, you're telling me to rely on my strength again.
Yeah.
That's not possible. Which is where I think the closure has to be God Himself again. Which is my side of the closure to the
fit gap analysis.
Yes,
right?
fit gap analysis.
Yeah. Critics often say that social media focuses more on visibility than substance. Generally, I don't mean you, but generally there's a debate that a lot of gospel singers these days are concentrating more on productions, the lights, than the music in itself or than the lyrics.
Mhm.
Yeah. So do you think these things are really needed?
It can be. You know what? How about we just leave it to their own consciousness, what they're using a social media platform for? If something really needs to have that visibility which is inside of them, that which is blessing tens or hundreds of people out there, what they're using to bring that out, or how they are using social media to bring that fact out, I don't think it matters. And it only tells me that that's what you're grabbing from it. So you're on the receiving side, that's what they're seeing. They're seeing the charm, they're seeing the lights, they're seeing, but what about their motives? People can't always be wrong, Navina. And somebody who's growing up the ladder has many enemies. So you never know what personally they went through. Everybody has a personal journey. Nobody gets a piece of cake just like that from the sky, and you're not part of their downtime also. So let people do what they do. And the minute you wear your judgmental hat, you're not proving anybody anything. You're only becoming a bitter person inside. So let them just do what they're doing. If there's any good, just learn. Or if there's nothing, move off. That's it. There is a button called unfollow on Instagram. Just do that. As simple as that. Who is asking you to see that? This criticism has robbed the church a lot, Navina, which is why, we keep talking about the downfalls of others, the weaknesses of others. Um, but I think it's for the Lord to take care of them.
There's been this discussion regarding mental health, and I believe mental health is extremely important.
Yes.
But there are also situations in my friends' lives, or I've come across or witnessed people saying that if you're facing any, like when you even utter the word of therapy or counseling,
I know.
right? They say go to church, see for Christ, see for not counseling, and they say when you have God, when you have Christ, you don't need any of these things. Just go cry unto the Lord.
As for a person who's mentally bleeding, you can't just tell them a revelation about God promising Abraham and some biblical story and try to get them, because they need something else. Spiritual life is here and our physical life is here. There's something called mind in between.
Yeah.
This is where all of this happens. As much as this needs some attention, something goes wrong, we run to doctors. This also needs attention, your mental health. You get better, you become a person who's liberated out of all your whatever mental problems that you have. And then you go to God, you are a much powerful person. You will understand God more receptively than you go with all these issues. See, there's no doubt about the superiority of the spiritual life is where it will control your mental health, also your physical health. No doubt. That's why many people were healed when they came to Jesus. And it's also true that, your mental wellness and all, God can take care of that also.
Yeah.
But you don't always test God to come and meet you just because you're crying desperately there. Sometimes our problems are, especially when you go through emotional breakdowns and, mental issues and all of that, you need someone right there to speak to you. It's as simple as that. Yeah. There is power of fellowship God already created, knowing that we need it during these times. And somebody who will dive into our situation and address us where we are is more important than we testing God and waiting Him to come down by mondiga fasting chesesi, వచ్చి నాకు అటెండ్ చేయాలంతే అని.
There's this story, right, regarding God sending the boat and the person ignoring, saying God will help me, but then he drowns. Yeah.
So it's like that. I think mental wellness is really, really important. And a person who is physically fit and mentally fit will be a quicker spiritually fit person.
Men, especially like you said earlier, they're not very expressive when it comes to talking about their emotions, because they think that will make them less masculine, right? But mental health is real and it affects men as much as women.
Yes. I haven't, I think, emotionally mentored a man as such, but I think there are a lot of other brothers who would talk and ask for advices or get prayed over, or not a literal session as such. I think we are drawing such pressure over them. Don't cry and don't do these things.
Men don't
That's
cry.
how men don't cry. Such a lie it is. Right? And I think we want men to cry and just be open.
Now we are done with all the questions and we're getting into the fun segment.
Fun side of it.
It's a rapid fire.
Yeah.
You got to be really quick. Are you ready?
Yep.
If you could meet one person from the Bible apart from Jesus, who would it be?
Peter.
What's a hymn or worship song that always gets stuck in your head?
Then sings my soul.
Coffee or chai?
Chai.
If you could time travel, would you visit the past or the future?
Future.
Yeah. What's your go-to snack during a busy workday?
Chips.
Never have I ever fallen asleep during a sermon.
No.
If you had to be stranded on a deserted island with one person from your family, only one person, who would you choose?
My brother.
I thought your husband. I would also choose my sister only. Music, corporate life, counseling. Which one do you enjoy the most?
Counseling.
Who's more dramatic at home, your husband or your child?
Child.
Your husband or you?
John.
If you could switch lives with someone for a day, who would it be?
Ollie, because she's getting all the princess treatment every day.
What's the one dish you can never cook no matter how hard you try?
I think mutton biryanis.
Okay, have you ever forgotten lyrics during worship or sang wrong lyrics during worship?
No.
She's a topper, guys. How will she forget the lyrics?
No, I mean, we practice, right? We just be prepared. John forgets a lot of lyrics.
See?
Yeah.
After even like performing at so many places. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's it, guys. We're done.
Yay.
Thank you so much for
Oh
coming.
my God, my pleasure. Thank
I
you for
had a
inviting.
great time, and this is a small gift from
Oh
our
God.
team.
Thank you so much.